So Evan, please tell us about where you're from and how where you're from influenced you, and who influenced you, and things like that.
Well, I was born in Sacramento, California, the capital city of California, and I grew up downtown in an old Victorian house. My father was a stained glass artist. He's retired now. He did a lot of fusing in the 80s. Kind of got into that through his friend Boyce Lundstrom, who later became my teacher. And I just grew up watching my dad work. He would spend 16 hours a day, 18 hours a day working on his lamps, his windows, just constantly doing stained glass work. Very tedious work.
So you mentioned that your dad was a glassmaker and influenced you indirectly, I suppose. Tell us a little bit more about, did you ever work with your dad, or did he teach you anything?
So my dad worked in stained glass and fused glass, and he had a very Tiffany-esque style in his stained glass work. A lot of Tiffany-style lampshades and windows. Forgot the question.
Did he help you to? Did he teach you anything, or did you work with him, or?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I mean,
like in an overt way, like.
I learned most of what I know about glass from my dad, but we never really worked together.
Kind of observational type of.
Yeah, when I was very young, 4 and 5, 6 years old, I would spend a lot of time just watching him work. And stained glass is a very tedious process, and there are many different steps, and they pretty much just take a lot of boring precision work. And I would actually just watch him do all of these stages every day, constantly.
Do you have any other influences with your work from the beginning, or?
I actually have a very strong influence. There's a man I never met named John Weber. He was a potter in the late 70s, I guess, and my dad has a lot of his old pots in the house. And when I was very young, I would constantly look at them, stare at them, and study them. And so later in high school, I studied ceramics, and his pots in my house were a very big influence just my entire life, and they still are. They're very nice, great forms, great content, good colors. I've still never met the guy, but he influenced me very strongly. Old friend of my dad's.
What about, since you've moved to Japan, are there any people that have had any kind of influence on what you're doing, or like kind of, the guy you were just talking about, somebody who kind of reinforces that aesthetic or feeling?
As an artist or fabricator, I'm influenced by just about everything I come in contact with. And so I worked a lot with an artist up in Ibaraki, Izuki-san, and he's influenced me a whole lot about the way I work. And also all the teachers at Renda Soul, they've really made me think more about the fineness of my work. Woodworking is very, very particular. There can be no spaces anywhere. Everything has to be done very, very finely. So that's influenced me a lot in the other materials I work with.
Evan, you mentioned stained glass is a tedious process that takes a lot of time. Take us through the steps of making that mirror behind you, for example, or any stained glass.
The first step is coming up with a design and getting all the lines accurate. You have to be very careful about the shapes of all the pieces of glass you cut. Some shapes you just cannot cut in glass. Very pointy shapes can break very easily. Very long, thin pieces can break very easily. So you have to think about the end product. So you come up with the design, draw it out, get the lines, the width of the lines exactly how you want them, which should be about 1.5 millimeters wide, and transfer the design to the glass, cut out the glass, grind the edges so that everything fits accurately. Then you take a copper foil, it comes in like a tape, it's very, very thin, and you wrap each piece with the copper tape. Then you can solder all the pieces together, and then you put a patina on the solder. That's the basic process. It's a little more involved than that, but...
And what is a patina?
Patina is any chemical that will color metal. The solder is a lead-based metal, and I use just copper sulfate to bring it back to a coppery look. Most people use a darker brown chemical, or even a black color. I like the coppery color best.
And how long does it usually take to, for example, that mirror behind you? And when you answer, please say like this mirror.
Yeah, this mirror probably took almost a day to make from start to finish. The most difficult part is applying the copper tape to it, because you have to have very precise widths on both sides of the glass, and it's really, really hard to see when you're applying it. It takes a long time. That's the longest part. Just doing the copper tape, that probably took 3 hours. There are not many pieces here, so very involved.
So, Evan, please talk about your experience in the American art scene, what you thought about it, were you a part of it, and then please just riff about that, and then what it's like being in Japan. And
so back in Sacramento, I showed in a couple of galleries, and before that I had my own kind of large studio and gallery with a few friends. It was a big warehouse. We showed every 2 or 3 months. And through there, I got to know all of the other gallery owners in town. And there were a couple of really nice galleries, a couple of very fine galleries, some that were more offbeat. And I got to know all the owners pretty well. We would party a little bit. And it was an interesting scene, very eclectic. There's a lot of very nice artists in Sacramento, good community. Before I left America, though, the economy was getting very bad, and most of the galleries I knew about closed down. A few of them are still around, but a lot of them were gone. So that scene is probably very different than what I remember.
so, Evan, please tell us why you got interested in Yokohama Furniture, why you chose the place that you went to. Tell us about your teacher, what's good about the place, what's bad about the place.
All right. I met a stained glass lady. She works in Yokohama. She makes all kinds of stained glass work. She's really, really, really good. And she had a little exhibition at their old showroom, the Rengiso showroom. And so I went there to check out her stuff, and I ended up meeting the owner of the furniture shop, and found out that they do classes on the weekends. There are 3 teachers, the owner, his son, and then one other guy who works there. And I really liked his work. His design style is very unique, and the craftsmanship is a very high level. So we met a couple of times, and then I got the opportunity to study with them. And previously, I did not want to get into woodworking at all. Too many different kinds of materials, too many different kinds of finishing, whole different set of tools. But the opportunity was so great, so I just couldn't deny myself the chance. So I've been studying there for 2 years, and I've learned a lot about not only woodworking, but through woodworking I've learned a lot about my own skills, and I've honed myself quite a bit. And honed myself, can I say that? Because of the very tightness of the work, like everything has to be very close to perfect. That has flowed into my other techniques, other materials. I've really brought everything in a lot tighter just from studying woodworking.
So, Evan, it seems like your work has become a lot more cohesive. You're developing, your own style. I think you're coming into your own as an artist, really, And what, was that natural? Was it influenced by the school that you're attending for the woodworking, or is it just natural maturity that happens when you work a lot? Or?
Well, for a long time I've wanted to mix different materials. I love working in glass, ceramics, metal. Now I'm studying wood. And I'm finally starting to combine different materials. And in combining them, I'm learning how they work together and really complement each other. And how to not overdo it, how to not underdo it. So I think that has really helped my work evolve a little bit. And it's going to keep on happening. It's going to keep going.
Do you yourself recognize it happening, or do you just not? You don't even notice. You're just working and.
So, like my father, he will always say he's never liked anything he's ever made. After he's finished with it, it's just never quite good enough. With me, when I first started really getting serious about making things, I probably ended up liking about 40 to 50% of the stuff I've made. As I'm getting older, I like probably 70-80% of the stuff that I make when I'm finished with it. Some of it I can throw away and not ever think about it again. But yeah, I'm liking more of what I'm finishing, and to me that's pretty amazing. For me, the most gratifying thing is actually production, just producing just about anything. I'm happy building art or furniture or equipment. They just really keep me going. And as for disappointments, there aren't really any disappointments for me. In my earlier days of production, when I was making glasswork or ceramics, I had so many things break. I've broken so much glass you wouldn't believe it. So I've gotten over any real disappointments. If you lose a piece, you lose a piece. You do it over. It's not a big deal. Yeah, learning the business side of it, that's pretty difficult for anybody. That's always a frustration and pretty slow coming. Other than that, it's all pretty fun. So for the future, I want to continue in furniture. I really enjoy making tables, and mirrors are fun, shelves are fun. As for the woodworking, I really have to get better. I'm still very much a beginner. 2 years of studying is not enough to really be a pro yet. As for other work, I've got a couple ideas in mind for glass stuff that I'd like to do, a couple of series. I'd like to do some plates, base them around something that I've seen a long time ago. And then I'd also like to do some abstract work in glass. I've never really done much. I've got a few ideas. But that's all still forming in my mind, so I can't say a lot about it yet.
And what about how many? Do you have any idea, like how many years or something that might change over, or is it just you don't have any plans about that? Just whatever happens, happens.
I don't have a plan of what I want to start tackling next. I do want to keep working on furniture for a while, but like over the next couple of months, I haven't decided what I'm going to get into just yet. But I do like, I really enjoy mixing materials, so I'm going to keep working that way. I'd like to get into some glass inlay into my tables. Yeah, wood tops, glass inlay, metal legs. I think we can make some really nice tables. From the station, Omoriaki, we teach simple classes in fusing, and the lessons are 3,500 yen plus materials. They usually end up being about 4,700 yen gurai for each class. The classes are 2 hours long. We supply all of the tools and the glass. And it takes usually about 2 or 3 weeks for the piece to be fully finished. And we can either deliver it by mail, or if you want to come back for another class, we just give you the piece then.
Okay, talk about what a class entails.
So, let's see. I mostly just teach beginning fusing, and so we go over safety, we go over cutting glass and grinding glass, assembling pieces. I teach about the process, the kilns, the firing, the different types of glass, and color a little bit.
What's the success level for the average student?
Success level.
Are people usually happy with what they make at the end, or is there a lot of frustration because it's a difficult process? Or
Glass fusing is interesting. It's pretty difficult to make something that you aren't happy with. When you get more advanced, of course, you get a lot more particular about your work, but beginning fusing it's pretty easy to make something that you enjoy having. So we teach people from, I think, about 5 years old and up. I started making stuff when I was 4 years old. 3 is a little bit too young to really be safe with glass, but 4 or 5 years old is okay. Up to as old as you want to get. I really enjoyed this exhibition. I hope you enjoyed looking at all my work as well. If you'd like to have a class, please come by and take a class. Ugh. That sounded bad too.